Yeah, that's good.
Probably drives my sister-in-law's nuts. So.
Well, thank you. Thank you all for being here. I don't know if you wanted to say anything, Deb, or
I'll let
you
you.
want to start out?
Okay. Well, folks, thanks of all, Jeff, for coming.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it's really important that our governor candidates always know what's going on in rural Minnesota, how important that is for not just the issue that we're going to talk about, the Sandpiper, getting that open for the ability to also get not just the oil moved, but the grain and the ability to get a hold of propane when we need it, so that people are not calling their legislator when it's 30 below or 40 below and can't get heat, or they got heat and they've got the propane, but they're have a $1,500 bill, which is a threefold increase in what they paid. So that's really concerning. But also just to make sure that we get the products going. We're competing with oil on the rail systems, and that's really has been an issue. And I thank you guys all for taking time, because this is the height of our harvest, and things are going well. It's pretty exciting to see the crops come in, and that's really important. And so I'm really thankful that you're here.
Yeah, well, thank you,
Appreciate
Deb. I appreciate it. Well, I don't have any formal presentation, but I thought I would just give you a couple thoughts about my background in the campaign and the Sandpiper issue in particular, and then if anybody has questions, I'm happy to take them, or if you have thoughts on the campaign. Just so you all know, this is kind of home for me, or at least close to home for me, and we're making a trek through the home territory. We started in Roseau this morning, and we're going to hit Thief River and Grand Rapids after this. I was born and raised in Detroit Lakes, Minnesota. My family's all still there, and my wife Sandy was born and raised in Crookston, and her parents are actually here today. And we went to school in Moorhead, so this is home for me, or close to home. And as a child of northwestern Minnesota, it bothers me to see the fact that greater Minnesota has become somewhat of an afterthought, at least the last couple of years, from the capital and from the Dayton administration, I believe. And I think we see it when we look at the priorities for K-12 funding. The K-12 funding formula seems to be focused more and more, almost every single year, on Minneapolis and St. Paul in particular. I think we've seen that those priorities when we look at LGA funding and we look at where we're spending transportation dollars. It almost all seems to be going right now to the cities and to transit and to trains and to streetcars and to bike paths, rather than the roads and bridges that we all depend upon, whether it's in the cities or in greater Minnesota. I think we've seen it. I don't know if any of you have followed the EPA and the Waters of the U.S. rules that they're trying to push, and essentially trying to tell all of us in Minnesota, but especially you in greater Minnesota, how you can use your land. And now we're seeing it even more so, I think, recently at least, with this Sandpiper issue and the fact that the Dayton administration really appears to be trying to kill it. They are using the regulatory process to slow it down, but I think when you look at the fact that the PUC, the Public Utilities Commission, has never really done this before with a project of this scale, it looks like they're probably trying to kill it. And the great thing about Sandpiper, I know people are going to have different opinions about it, but not only will it provide, they claim, almost 1,500 jobs in northern Minnesota, but I think more importantly, as Deb mentioned, it will get some of the oil off the rails and allow farmers to get more of their crops to market. And you all know that that has become a big issue in this part of the state, where we have farmers, customers of this very elevator, and farmers all across northern Minnesota who are unable to get their crops to market because the rail cars are filled with oil from North Dakota. And Sandpiper would actually help to solve that problem. And the governor, his solution to that particular problem is to write a tough-sounding letter to the railroads and to the federal government, which is great, but it's not really going to do anything to solve the problem. And one step we could take is to move forward with this project as quickly as we can, and unfortunately, that's not what's happening with this administration. So you can see something very different from me as governor. I will seek to represent the entire state. You'll see that when it comes to issues like transportation. My focus is going to be on roads and bridges for the whole state, rather than on trains and trolleys that tend to only affect the Twin Cities. And it will be on trying to better equalize funding in things like K-12 education. And in our bonding bill, which we have not been seeing lately, and actually standing up to the federal government when they come in and try to dictate how you all can use your own property, and of course doing everything I can to try to move forward with this particular sandpiper project and get the oil off the rails as soon as we can so that you can get your products to market. I guess I'll just wrap up by saying that I think it would be helpful to have a governor who's actually spent half his life in greater Minnesota and half his life in the metro, and can help bridge that geographic divide that we happen to have in this state right now. In fact, when I was in the House, the biggest fights we'd have didn't come based upon ideology, they came based upon geography and what the funding formulas look like and where the money goes, whether you're talking about education or transportation or LGA. And I think if you had a governor who actually understands greater Minnesota as well as the metro, as I do, I think it can better bridge that gap and actually have a system that's more fair than what we have right now, and a governor who actually cares about and understands greater Minnesota. So with that, I am happy if anybody has any questions or if you have comments or thoughts for me, I'd be willing to take them now. Anybody have any questions?
How do you feel about Highway 2? As your lieutenant governor said, Highway 2 never should have been a 4-lane highway.
No, what he actually said, and the newspaper actually acknowledged that they misquoted him. What he said was that there were some people who thought Highway 2 shouldn't have been a 4-lane, and his argument was, by the way, I absolutely
It isn't
think
4-lane past Cass Lake.
Right, and it should be.
That's the worst part.
I'm a roads and bridges guy, and that's where we should be focusing all our money. And what the point that Bill was trying to make was that road funding has become, at least at the federal level, all about whether you have a powerful politician representing you or not. And I think his point was it shouldn't be about that, it should be about where the needs are. And I don't know if you know the Corridors of Progress program that the Greater Minnesota cities are trying to push through, but that's something that has not seen the light of day the last few years because the focus has been towards light rail trains and commuter rail, and I would like to see that funded. That's where you're going to see my focus, so absolutely it should be funded.
Well, there's a few guys in here that farm and have trucks that used Highway 2 extensively.
Yeah, I imagine.
So.
And we're seeing some pretty heavy truck traffic out there right
No
now
kidding.
today.
It was a great time to show Jeff the beet harvest along with
Yeah.
other harvests. He's going to see a lot in northwestern Minnesota. So.
Yeah. Any other questions or?
Step over that way, his pictures will be better.
What's that?
You got that bright window behind you.
Oh, okay.
I take another video. Is there any turning
I always
back?
want to help you out. He's
You
my
know,
DFL tracker.
this is our Democrat tracker. He's here to,
That's a-
He's hoping I say
to
something
use
dumb.
video against him.
I thought he was here to
learn. No, he is definitely not.
Is there any way to turn around the Senate office building? Is that
No,
too far gone?
unfortunately, it's pretty much a done deal. It's going to be so far along by the time I'm governor that it wouldn't make, we'd never tear it down. That wouldn't be responsible. But I think you can look at what are we going to use it for. There are very few people in the state who think it's a wise use of taxpayer dollars. In fact, I think there's a lot of senators, DFL senators, who probably wish they didn't have to vote for that. So I think if we finish the thing, then do we look at, is there a better use for it? Because there will still be offices in the Capitol for the senators. Could we rent it out to the private sector? Could we sell it to the private sector and put it back on the property tax rolls? I think at least you can look at some other potential uses for it if it's likely too far gone to stop, which it will be, I think. But when the example I use of that is we're spending 90 million, they dropped it to 77 because they're making people pay to park in the public ramp now, but it's really still a $90 million project. And what they spent on that project was more than what was put into the $1 billion bonding bill for roads and bridges, which is crazy. There's no question where the priority should be. Other questions or thoughts?
Well, I just got back from the DAV convention at Baxter.
Okay.
And, you know, one of the questions that I would have is how does Minnesota fair when we look at national defense and all of these issues of national defense that are bubbling to the foreground here, the Ebola, the terrorism,
Yep.
and all. I mean, Minneapolis supplied a whole bunch of people over to fight with ISIS, and actually Minnesota's got a place on this national defense thing.
Yeah.
And then to say nothing of how we treat the veterans.
Yeah, well, on the veterans issue, as a starting point, there's one issue that kind of stands out there, which is taxation of pensions for veterans. We are one of the very few states that actually taxes pensions, and we should. I mean, it's a small dollar issue, and it's a small thing that we could do to keep our veterans here after they retire. And on that bigger issue of national defense, I've actually been talking with some in the Somali community about the recruitment that is going on, because it is, and everybody knows what's going on in Minnesota, and they've had at least a small level of success with that, and there is great concern about that. I don't know what is happening at the government level about it. I haven't really heard much of anything, but my hope is that they're attacking that rather aggressively, because it's a concern. Anything else?
I wanted to ask Danny Grunwald is.
Oh,
Jeff
hey,
Johnson.
Jeff.
Nice to meet you, Jeff.
Yeah, thanks for letting
Danny
us
is
use
the
your place.
manager of the elevator.
Yep.
Can you kind of give us a heads up on what's happening here and, how things are working with moving?
Oh, rail shipment?
Yes.
It's absolutely just a nightmare. I mean, we've been working, it's affected us now for about the last year, it's just been something horrible. We are members of the Minnesota Grain Feed Association and North Dakota Grain Dealers, and they've both been trying to alleviate some of this oil problem, and it just isn't working. So, I mean,
It's not getting any better.
it's not getting better, and everything gets more expensive. I mean, everything's,
Right.
and we can't eat it, so it just gets passed down the line, and if you had probably $8, $9 a week, people would notice it. When you start, prices dropping, you notice it,
Yep.
so.
Yep.
And if you're not on the ball buying freight early, you get stuck behind the 8 ball like people are right now, and it's just expensive. I mean, it's $1 a bushel now if you wanna get extra freight for October, November delivery during the cut slot here, and it can't keep going on like this, and I don't see it getting any better.
Yeah, setting aside the pipeline, which would still be a couple of years away now that they've delayed it, do you see any other viable answer for you that the state can help with?
No, well, other than getting that pushed through a little quicker, we're not gonna build it overnight either, but I mean, if you get it for long term, we may as well get it,
Right.
I mean.
Yeah, it will help solve the problem in the long term.
Well, it'll cut back, and I'm not sure if 100% of the oil will be done by the
Right.
pipeline, it won't be, so the railroad will still get some revenue off it. I mean, they're still gonna make money, and that's what business is supposed to do, is make money, but you can't we rely on the railroad to do 100% of it. I mean,
Well,
it's not
especially-
feasible.
Yeah, well, and when there's a solution, a viable solution, it's frustrating.
Yep,
We can't-
yeah, there's no reason to, I mean,
Yep.
there's pipelines already in the ground, and there's no reason to, I mean, not do it. I mean, I can't see why, but it's.
Well, besides the freight charges that you have for shipping the grain, don't you have to pay to get the cars?
You pay a premium, it doesn't mean you're gonna get them either.
Really?
And then not to blame the railroad all for it, but I mean, at harvesting, we've always had trouble getting cars when you order them, and that's just part of their business, you just kinda wait, but now it's just gotten out of hand. I mean, it's just, we're waiting for cars middle of September yet, so, and it's not gonna get any better, and when the cold comes, it'll get that much farther behind. We're at one point, we're 8 weeks behind on cars.
Oh my gosh.
We're good, BN has been real good compared to UP, and those guys were waiting 3 to 4 months waiting for cars, so. The guys tell me not to complain about BN, and I don't, because they were doing as best as they could, but, compared to the other railroads.
Yeah, no, I've heard that too, that they at least seem to be trying.
Yep, I mean, they're trying, and so, I mean, they were doing the best they could, but it's just a big problem,
Yeah.
so.
I believe they're adding cars and they're working on the rail system so that there's improvement there, but.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
they
it-
put a lot of money in infrastructure, they're trying and spending money anyways.
Correct, yes. But it also is a problem for you expect, farmers want to be self-sufficient, so you want to be able to sell your crop. And we hear the price of the crop, public hears that and thinks, well, farmers getting, what is it now? I haven't even looked in the last few days, $4.
Oh, for wheat,
Wheat,
about $5.20, it's up today a little bit,
$5.20.
yeah.
But it can be another buck cheaper, by the time we sell it, it's
If I didn't have some
another dollar loss.
pre-bought, if I also hope to pick up extra business, I'd have to drop my bid by $1.
Hmm.
Well, I'm not gonna get any extra business.
Right.
I could never expand, unless you take a big risk in the spring, and buy your yearly freight up, and hopefully the freight keeps going higher so you can get some business. But if it goes the other way, then you're gonna eat a lot of it, so it's kind of, it's risky.
Yeah.
I'm afraid you want to stick your neck out for it.
Any of you guys happen to know what it's gonna cost you when the crop is done this year yet? I haven't asked our son. But what our costs are going to be to raise wheat? I thought it was more
Most of us are
than.
below the hired men in our organizations anymore, so we don't really know what's going on.
All the guys that are starting to let their sons be, yeah, and
Yeah.
I had intended to ask Christian today, but I thought it's at least around $5 for our costs.
Hmm.
So it becomes really challenging to
Yeah.
break even,
Yeah.
so.
You could
Anything
work
else?
on winning the lottery so that you could have a few more years farming.
Oh, yeah. I don't have to gamble in the lottery because I do that in the farming, so. No. You know, and it's been really wonderful to have the weather we've had, you know, we're really blessed to be able to get the crop off the way, you know. So, but that's always what do we want to say, a crapshoot?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it looks very good and helps us out, so. You guys have any other concerns at all? Questions?
Do you have any signs with you, the road signs put up along?
Did we leave them in the plane?
We did.
I'll tell you, the Republicans are not getting
You
a
have any
high
more
grade
signs?
on,
Oh, I have lots,
sign
yeah.
availability.
I do. You know what, I would guess that, Jeff, you could leave some with me in the
Okay.
back of my car.
Yeah, we brought a
Somebody
bunch
could
on the plane.
saturate all the way from Crookston to Climax.
I got 6 of them and they were up within a day and it's just impossible
Yes.
to get.
Yeah, no, it
Signs.
is.
Yeah,
It's challenging.
I think we've ordered 10,000 signs, and they're almost all out. We're not sure where exactly, but they're almost
Not
all
up
out.
here
But
much.
we,
Oh,
I think we brought a.
Johnson there's more
That's all.
of Johnson than there, and Debbie, but,
Mhm.
the
I think we got
others are-
25 that we can leave with you, and
Okay.
if you guys
Great.
are willing to put some up,
Oh,
we would love it.
yes.
That'd be great.
Yeah, these big cornfields are hard to put signs in.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
So, I was
Well-
giving my dad a hard time about it. Can't put a sign in your cornfield, nobody will see it.
Yeah, you did, that's right. You screwed up the best field along highway.
That's my sign field, I'm like, I gotta have some more conversations with those brothers.
That's great.
So, yeah, we'll get some.
We got one for Western right across the road here. and,
I see
Yeah, we
that.
saw that, that looked good.
There would have been a Johnson one there if I had any left.
Well, we'll get you one.
Yeah.
We don't
there
have,
you go.
we don't have any
Well,
4x8s.
we put one
but-
up there even today.
Sure.
Cool,
Okay.
oh, that's great. All right, well, thank you so much, I appreciate you being here, and I'd
Give
be
me a
happy to
couple
talk,
minutes?
absolutely,
Okay.
yeah, I'm happy to talk with you too.
Thank you for coming.
So, thank you guys.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, all right.
Yes, same here.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for letting us.
Get out in the field.
Sandpiper and transportation, you're all together.
Oh, here, Debbie.
Thank you guys for coming. See you.
Well, you're lucky to have your in-laws coming too.
You're awesome.
I'm so glad you told me about Sandpiper transportation and all coming together.
Well, transportation, for me, it comes down to prioritizing what everybody relies upon. Well, all of the energy, all of the focus on transportation, coming from the current administration is on everything but roads and bridges, rail, commuter rail, high-speed rail, trolleys, trains, bike paths, sidewalks, everything but roads and bridges. And we really need to reverse that. Roads and bridges have to be on the list. They benefit everybody, everybody relies on them, and that will certainly be the case when I'm governor. And Sandpiper is a different but similar
Well,
issue
this
in
could be
that that is something that could solve or help solve a couple of different problems. We have one key one around here being the fact that we've got so much oil on rails that a lot of farmers can't get their crops to market. And if we could move forward with Sandpiper, we could at least get some of that oil off the rails and partially solve what is a very significant problem for a lot of people just trying to make a living.
Well, I know it's been a concern about the danger of going through town here.
Yeah,
Anyway,
right.
education a little bit, you mentioned that too, that we don't get our fair share up north.
Right, yeah, and that is, you know, what I've seen over the years is that the education funding formula has nothing to do with what's best for the kids. It's all about politics and trying to get a bill passed in the legislature every 2 years. And so we've got all these funding streams that have been put in place not because they improve education, but because they help a particular district or a particular politician. And right now, we're seeing Minneapolis, for example, spend over $20,000, receive over $20,000 a kid, whereas the state average is $10,700. And my guess is there are districts here that are much, much less than that. And your results are actually better. So it's not, what we're doing is not working. And what we need to do is, as much as possible, put more of the money directly on the per pupil formula. There are different needs in different parts of the state, of course. So you know, it's never going to be exactly the same, but we need to flatten out this a little bit so that it is a flatter, fairer funding system than what we have.
How about local government aid? Crookston gets $42,000 more than last year.
Yes, and what my frustration with local government aid is that once again we've got a very Minneapolis-centric formula. They increased local government aid considerably last year or the year before, but they also sent more of it to Minneapolis, a bigger portion than they've ever had before. And you know, I don't happen to believe that Minneapolis needs local government aid. The purpose of local government aid was supposed to be to help communities with a low property tax base provide those basic government services that everybody needs, and that's not Minneapolis. And so my goal with LGA is going to be to try to move the formula so that we are directing the dollars to the communities that need them the most. We're not doing that right now.
What else do you hear out here in the woods and the trails out here?
I hear a lot about jobs, and it's two different ways. I hear from some employers that it's very difficult for them to find people with the right skills to fill the jobs, and that has a lot to do with both inviting people to certain parts of the state and also working with our schools, our colleges, our MINSCU system to make sure that their training matches what the needs are. But I'm also hearing from a lot of people about the underemployment rate in Minnesota. They don't use that term, but it's 53%. According to the Dayton administration, half the people in Minnesota are working in jobs for which they're overqualified and probably underpaid because they can't find a better paying career. And that is because we're not creating them in Minnesota right now, at least not at the clip that other states are. And we've got to change that. We have to become more competitive with other states so that the private sector is creating careers and high-paying full-time jobs for people that are going to other states.
Okay.
Great.
I was going to say, do you know Bernard Eder? Do you remember him?
Yes, absolutely. I served with him.
I know you did.
Yeah.
But I was going to say, if you want to talk about transportation, I don't care what party he is, he's the guy you need to talk to.
Yeah, no, he's a smart man.
His smartness is sharp as a tack.
Yeah, how old is he?
In his 90s.
Is he really? And is he still active around here?
Yeah, well, he has trouble walking, and
Okay.
he's embarrassed about it. Otherwise,
Yeah.
if he had one of these, he'd be all over.
Really?
But I would love it if you would just call him up and ask him.
Yeah.
Get him some ideas.
Yeah, I always got along great with him.
Well, everybody.
Yeah,
And he's just marvelous.
yeah, yeah.
Because he's doing a lot of World War II stuff.
Okay.
He got to do the honor thing.
Oh, the flight?
Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
He did
Good
that
for him.
so well.
That's
He
nice
didn't
to
give
hear.
a speech without one note in front of him.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Huh. Well, that's great. It's
Yes.
nice to hear. Well, maybe I'll run into him. That would be
Well,
kind
I
of
doubt
nice.
that you'll run into him, but
Yeah.
he could give you some good ideas
Yeah.
about transportation.
Okay, well, that's great. Well, good to see you. Thank you for
Yes.
coming out. I appreciate it. I'm sorry
Well,
that if we haven't
we've been
contacted
waiting
you.
and waiting for Southern Republicans. McFadden stood me up.
No.
Westrum's coming this afternoon.
Good.
But we don't have a schedule. I've gone to your websites trying to find a schedule where you're going to
Yeah.
be. Nothing.
Yeah, we are going to be back up here, I think on the 22nd. So
Okay.
I'll let you know, and if you're interested, we'll
Yeah.
get together again.
We should get emails and stuff. That,
Okay.
You know, that's what we normally do, but
Okay.
not today.
So you're not on our media list?
Nope.
Okay, well, we'll fix that.
Well, KRX has been here 65 years. I
Yeah.
think we should be on the media list.
Yeah, you should be. That's
Yeah.
that's our mistake. So
You can
I'll
send
get
your
that fixed.
contact information, I'll send it to our press guy right now.
Mine is Mary Ann
Okay.
_,
Hold on.
MARYANN.
I'm new to this iPhone, so just give me a second here. All right, it's Marianne, you said?
Yep, MARYANN _
Okay.
Simmons, like the mattress,
Okay.
@ hotmail.com. Very good, thank you.
Yeah.
Did you want to talk a little more?
Yeah, I have a couple
Okay,
questions.
sure, that's
Just
great.
a couple.
Very good, thank you.
So, I read in the search movie that you guys are behind in the polls. How do you plan on kind of coming back?
You know, it's, part of it is travel around the state and just getting in front of as many people as I can, and the earned media that comes with that. And then a huge part of it is staying on TV with ads, probably some rural radio as well, and social media, but TV is still the most important thing. So we are pretty heavily the rest of the way with a couple different messages. And you know, the polls that we have seen so far, almost all, I think all of them actually were taken before we were up on TV in any meaningful way. So hopefully that changes the numbers a little bit
Okay.
going forward.
Okay, and also, you touched a little bit on education. How do you plan on expanding your out of the metro area into more rural areas without increasing taxes?
Well, I mean, it's all about setting priorities in government, something that we've been terrible at the last couple of years. It seems like the focus has been to just spend more money on everything without changing the way we do it, without deciding what's more important than something else. And so, to me, we should be prioritizing K-12 education, we should be prioritizing rural services, and we should be prioritizing a safety net for the people who are most vulnerable in our society. And then we should be demanding results from all three, making sure that what we're spending the money on is actually doing what we claim we want to do. And so, if you start there, there's a lot of spending that doesn't fit those three categories. And we need to take a look at it and maybe get back here and there. But most importantly, it's about deciding what's important first and funding that well.
Okay, and you were talking a lot about the funding model for K-12 education as it is now.
Yep.
And how it prioritizes education in the metro area. Can you talk more about that funding model? What can you describe that a little more?
Sure. I mean, what has happened, and this is, it's gotten worse the last couple of years, but it's actually been happening for a long period of time. Every 2 years, when the legislature passes K-12 funding, they've got to figure out how to get the votes to get passed. And so oftentimes they'll let's add a special funding stream for this area of the state so we can get these 7 votes. And then let's do this a little bit differently and give it a little extra money or something. So the funding formula is really based on politics as opposed to what best serves our kids. And it's gotten just completely out of hand recently. Because of all that, because of the politics of all that, we've seen the funding streams increase dramatically, especially probably for the metro broadly. And I think when you look at the fact that Minneapolis is spending almost twice as much as the state average, but their results are nowhere near what the state average is, it would suggest that we got to do something different. It's not just sending more money there. That's not working. We got to start looking at how they're actually running the schools there.
Okay, and what kind of funding model would you propose?
You know, I would want to always move in the direction, my bias is always going to be towards more on the per pupil funding so that every kid is treated the same. We're never going to get to a place where there aren't any special funding streams, because there are special needs in certain parts of the state. I think that's fair. There are special needs in parts of greater Minnesota because of extra transportation costs, whereas maybe in parts of the metro there may be special needs because of language issues. But we have created so many different streams and different strings attached to funding that nobody even understands the system anymore. And so whatever I do, I'm going to try to move towards putting money on the per pupil formula rather than in special funding streams.
Okay, great. All right, that's all the questions.
Okay, great, thank you. Thanks for coming out,
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, nice to meet you too.